Contention 1 is Indo-Pac 1. Failure of opposition parties to successfully mobilize voters means they can't check bad foreign policy decisions, a crucial feature in democracy. Roger Gopalan, 827, the opposition cannot engage in political mobilization, opposition critical role in plan monitoring foreign policy. The opposition is able to pull the government back from unwise direction, providing for long-term course correction with corrective functions. The unique advantage that democracies have, like opposition, to contribute to fully strategic behavior. The benefits of democracy are unlikely to occur with complete dominance in one party. 2. Low turnout causes parties to fracture and jockey for power, reducing incoherent and dangerous foreign policy. Tawari 19. Voters still perceive voting as an optional luxury essential for every voter to elect a responsible government to steer the country forward, making voting compulsory as arrived as national importance. The menace of legislators is hidden political parties. These pocket parties entered into ramshackle political lines, declining power. They led to regional satraps demanding their share of flesh at the detriment of natural interest. They've cashing votes not rendered mandatory comfort remaining trace of democracy in our country. 3. The plan evens the electoral playing field. Both low turnout and slow turnout spikes disproportionately favor the BJP. Venkatarama Krishnan 19. In each of the elections, the BJP plus performed much better in constituencies where had a low turnout. The BJP is able to mobilize voters with enthusiasm. Low with 2014 wave election, the voters with BJP support. BJP voters were much more likely to turn out. The BJP will perform better in low turnout situation. 4. Likely now. Recent airstrikes, convention of the National Command Authority, and structural incentives from uneven voter turnout. Roblin 416. The next India Pakistan nuclear crisis could lead to war. India must create conditions for government to reign and genuine legitimacy. The first Indian air attack on Pakistani soil since 1971 war. Islamabad promise would retaliate the Prime Minister convenes National Command Authority that can authorize nuclear weapons. Indian Pakistani ground forces are exchanging tank and artillery powers. The resolution of the question not inspire misguided confidence. Weaken perceived legitimacy among Kashmiri Muslims. Only 36% turned out to vote either Indian or Pakistan to prevent nuclear escalation or rising. India will grow increasingly more inclined to retaliate when they hear them over. 5. Democracy is the crucial factor preventing Indo-Pac war. NAF 19. The risk of nuclear weapon in India and Pakistan remains low. The most important factor in that, but the countries are democratic governments beholden to the people to ensure that extreme decisions like nuclear weapons can democratic governments have greater accountability. 6. Even a limited Indo-Pac nuclear war causes extinction. Manon 19. Even a limited Indo-Pac nuclear conflict is an anxiously challenge to life. The immediate casualty number 125 million. Advanced committee models confirm nuclear winter temperatures could plunge President the committees into even a war with low yield. Explosion can pose an existential threat to global level. Comparison to run to ice age billions of face starvation. Even 1/3 of works is expected causing value shortages. The ozone layer would be degraded in nuclear war poses an existential threat to humanity. Contention 2 is modeling. 1. Indian democracy is on the brink. Nationalists are trying to consolidate power by ignoring the people. Scroll 829. Dictatorship of democracy was rising in the countries that across which democratic institutions are being ruined. Elements want to suppress the voice of the people. 2. Turnout is the vital internal link to Indian democratic modeling. The Souls, Dodo, Lakavanar, and Tadasad. 18. India's citizens model for emerging democracies around the world. Free and fair election of the hallmark political participation with the lifeblood of democracy. Failure to exercise their voting rights imperils democratic ideals. The wider electorate will protect society in Australia. The turnout has never fallen below 90%. Compulsory voting classified suffrage as a civic duty responsible to the political community. The duty of voting is democratic society. CBA has a have to voter turnout. India needs to be a stable democracy. 3. Indian democracy is key to global democratization. Gurjar 77. Gurjar 77. Much rides on whether India can strengthen its democracy and present as an attractive alternative model. Competition between India and China is the struggle between two conflicting political systems. The Chinese model of authoritarian policy says to merge an extractive model for many countries. China projected as a successful model, and India model with democracy is an alternative. India will have to train democracy at home and present itself as an attractive antithesis of the Chinese focusing on democracy at home. Converge a grand strategy for strengthening global democracy. 4. Democracy solves a laundry list of impacts: economic growth, terror, instability, or stability, and war. Lee 18. The democracy leads to investor confidence and growth. Democracy is time to be wealthier and more economically stable, making countries less willing to go to war. Politicians invest in public education, healthcare, which increases societal productivity, innovation, improves quality of life. Democracies are politically stable, and elections reduce the need for diversion, war, and conflict, civil wars, increase instability, violent extremism. Democracies preserve the liberal world. Or democracies do not go to war with one another. Public countries' leaders' ability to wage war. World democracies stay for more prosperous. 5. DPT is empirically robust. Every counterexample crushes under better historical analysis. Miller 19. The absence of war between democracy comes close to an empirical law. Mayor Chalmers' argument is non sequitur. The question of struggles does not arise between two democracies. Realists are unable to explain variance. Mayor Chalmers argues there are 4 cases of democracies fighting. None hold upon or the other party more simply were not uphold democracies, but democracies march to the brink of war. But did not go to war. The Kargil War was so small that the UDCP codes is below war. DPT true for other 99.9% of cases. Contention 3 is solvency. Plan in the Republic of India, voting ought to be compulsory. Will defend an Australia model. Suraj 17. The duty to vote is enforced by punitive legislative design. Either give a valid reason for the failure or pay $20. The punitive method is a bit mild and non-burdensome. The percentage for non-words penalized never exceeds 1%. Legal tax permit quite a few reasonable exemptions. Enforcement may begin carefully and not easy on the voters. Lack of turnout is producing a democracy deficit in India. Compulsory voting is crucial to reverse this tide and improve government policymaking. Suraj 17. Turnout is recorded as a measure of the well-being of democratic institutions. CB is good at in India. India ranks 105 of 196 countries as a sign of democratic deficit. India democracy is currently facing a huge vacuum where representation of the government needs to be authorized by the Nehru people every month. But we're strong democracy. The government totally depends on the active participation by the voters. The more the people distinctly proportionally better participatory democracy needs to be embedded in the Indian culture soon for the long life of its democracy. Critics are wrong. Compulsory voting isn't illiberal. It protects the foundations of democracy. Cowhen 19. In the wake of dismal voter turnout, CB is worth a try in Indian compulsory voting as regimes voters can cast blank ballots. CB professors and strengthen non-dominant nomination for political class act, not voting side, indicate that the rights being exercised impact voter return goes beyond turning back. Even if the voters cast no to, it's still a meaningful signal to improves income distribution. Contention 4 is framing. Use reasonable AF interps. There are multiple T interps. The one in T can read like spec good bad, which the AF will always violate. If our interp is okay, you should default to substance. One AR theory is key to check and see abuse, and it outweighs neg theory. The 2NR has time to go for multiple flows, but time crunch to AR has to be able to collapse. The standard is maximizing expected well-being. Prefer one. Only pleasure and pain are intrinsically valuable. All other frameworks collapse. Mo and 16. That pleasure is intrinsically valuable and pain is intrinsically disvaluable. There's something undeniable good about pleasure and something undeniably bad about pain. Value status of pleasure and pain are manifest in how we treat these experiences. Pleasure is not good for anything further. 2. No act emission distinction. People decide not to act, which means being presented with the F creates a choice between two actions, neither of which is an emission. 3. Weighability. Only consequentialism can explain the ethical difference in breaking a promise to take someone to the hospital and breaking a promise to take someone to lunch. Intuitions outweigh their unnecessary side constraint on all ethics. If a very well justified logical theory concluded rape good, you wouldn't say, huh, I guess rape is good. You wouldn't abandon it because philosophy follows intuitions, not the other way around.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Cool. We'll start now. What does incoherent mean?
Where did I say that? I guess it depends on context.
It probably does depend on context, but you did say it, and I think it was the third point.
On which contention?
I think it's the first one. No, never mind.
First?
Oh, never mind. It's the second point. Tuari 19. Yeah. Second point on the first contention. Low turnout causes parties to fracture and jockey for power production. Incoherent. What does incoherent mean?
Oh yeah. In this context, it's just bad foreign policy.
Yeah, but why is that word associated with bad foreign policy? Like, what's the warrant for that?
Well, so if foreign policy written by Indians, so like once again, has to be read in context. This foreign policy created by a bunch of small Indian fringe extremist parties is dangerous which is why we called it incoherent, i.e., like incoherent means not able to be understandable to the other side. It has no room for compromise.
Oh, not able to be understandable. Okay, so not being able to understand
Pakistanis.
So not being able to understand.
No. Not being able to understand during a war, yes, is bad. You should be able to compromise, come to peaceful negotiations, not have extremist political parties. These are all true. I'm not going to make totalizing claims because I know that's a bad idea.
It just probably is. Okay, it's fine. Let's talk about pleasure. Some people can't feel pleasure. Does the affidavit just exclude them?
Where? Oh, you mean the Moen evidence?
Yes, the Moen evidence.
Some people can't feel pleasure. To be totally honest, okay, sure. The F does not exclude those. We read like an overarching utilitarian framework. What?
I have a question.
Sure.
So if some people can't feel pleasure, then how does the F why does the F matter to them?
You can still use the other util justifications. That's like one of 3.
Okay, so your one justification falls just because some people can't feel pleasure, and only the other 2 matter.
No. Okay. The Moen evidence still applies in the case where people can feel pleasure.
Okay, so you just exclude the people that can't feel pleasure?
From the specific justification of the Moen evidence. Not that we're excluding them, it's just that it can't apply to them. Like, how are we supposed to apply pleasure? Okay,
sure. Why didn't you give that's fine. Let's talk about this illiberal thing, the critics are wrong card, the Sean 19 card. What's the warrant in this card? It seems pretty under-highlighted.
No, it's just a preempt to sort of liberalism arguments. It says, first of all, that voters can cast blank ballots, which means that you're not forced to sort of participate in politics.
Who's allowed to cast a blank ballot?
Voters.
Okay, so any voter. So anyone can cast a blank ballot?
Yep. Anyone who.
So then how does the app solve if anyone can cast a blank ballot?
We argue that people wouldn't cast blank ballots because if you're going to turn out to vote, why would you only just cast blank ballots? We've read a bunch of Solomon.
Wait, are you required to turn out to
vote? That's kind of a loaded question. So
Can you just answer it?
I can. Okay, sure. There's this line in the first Suresh card under solvency, which really answers the question well. So I'll just read it. At this stage, the abstaining voter has 2 options: A, submit the details of circumstances which show they actually voted, or B, in case they failed to vote, give a valid reason for the failure or pay $20.
Okay, cool. Also, the one in C.
Cool.
Have an off case. The order of the case is on the dock. I can give you the order if you want, though.
No, that's fine.
Just, okay, cool. Okay, so there's a content warning at the top. It says the word rape and says the word suicide. There's no descriptions or graphics or anything like that. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Judge, is that cool? I mean, it's not obviously cool, but like, yeah, you get what I mean. Okay.
I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay.
Just let me know when everyone's ready. Everyone okay? Did you get it,
One
Andrew?
second, I'm just pulling it up.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, Judge, you good? Sweet. Would you rather me call you Diana? I don't know. Whatever. All right.
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I just kept them muted, so I have to like turn it on and off. But yeah, that's fine.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, cool. First off is the Crip Cascade. Compulsory voting equals compulsory able-bodied. Third voting reform is a smokescreen for the underlying problem of aides like me being excluded from the polling office. Bill 15. I think if you're saying you should not be allowed to appear to the New Jersey Constitution, does actually party no leader saying shall enjoy the rights to suffrage. Nearly 40 states and disenfranchised people based on the mental status with the anarchic language, lunacy, the rank analysis by Constitution, legislative court case, not children. States can create a regime of compulsory bodies through voting, which established idiots and lunatics for disenfranchisement starting Maine in 1819. The legal system maintained idiots and not possess recommends for voting political movements, ignore voting bans for mental disabilities, so it's not for the social, the importance of social landscapes, and attack activities and other groups and African Americans and women who are lacking capacity for position and mental impairments, class, gender, race. Psychiatrists focus on asylums, the use of civil command, exploded flying sand, flag polls for mental competence. We presume civil death of those treated. Reformers create new institutional structures for those considered mentally deficient, bringing back a constitutional and democracy to discuss the mentally proper system for the just needed left behind structure of suffrage. There was a time pessimism reform, so the PRD of the electorate was under siege. The measuring may not change. Ask yourself why, if people can't handle responsibility or they really don't have shoulders when you see 2019, I'll read blue. Casting valid is both anyone responsibility on those shoulders of every citizen. The one I see just supposed to human cyber analysis teaches survival strategies to inmates to rupture the language of power. Power PSG 17. Intermediate post-human object or intelligence system analysis post-human suffering. Causes and objects objects human subject objects consider vegetables. The intermediate communicates functions to language of industry single human processing. Next up. Intro of the Africans claim that Africans one theory, every reason often trips in the one theory comes with violation of the U.S. standard infinite be siloed not any theory as in the one theory comes in all my theory is the reason by which I can't check anything of these attacks and my theory shell, which includes the paradigm issues of one theory since it determines whether I can use in the first place. Next up is the disability of continency. Value stems from the authority to place value on certain objects, which intrinsically gives a value, give a value, and playing metaphysical of intrinsic value. Metaphysical value determine the ability of the standard to make itself just leading to a just standard. They're used with the psychometric to cop and analysis priorities this way of an analysis and the kind of disable into flagging. Issue 18. We think it displays other meaning for frames of value in the question. No consequences has about whether people should security to put on the ground to pick the love worse than expectation, not stable love. Content of the loss of the units submitted the person to you cannot say when replacing with not stable because disability address to depend on whether having a good disability is good my argument rather than content firmer. You can confer value choose by making them language from whether you confer any sorts of value. People can act in ways to humanity's autonomy, also value and other health within your early means with one another well-being is not inclusive value because the choice promotes well-being not produced on others people value that cannot be traded off for the sake of well-being. Useful permits killing one to save many use percent more size than autonomy. Imagine someone who chooses to undergo surgery and restore right on gaining the ability to improve well-being or hinder well-being, whether becoming disabled or not disabled is good well-being is relevant to the question of whether she be permitted to undergo surgery. Parents' duties have been unconditionally welcome determined whether the disability status content favored respect human beings, whether the to be as all functions of moral status. All human species share moral status. Thus, the standards respecting disability freedom impact calculus. A freedom is an property of agency, not an added constant attitude. That makes something more circular than about support, just because humans are not free. The one human being, even if there's enough for even if you ask them more freedom, it means you have to achieve more freedom and inherent course of action. You cannot just do a appropriate response. I read that question whether the same thing in position of coercion in the first place. Prefer additionally one regress to Asian compliance what should do in the amount of time studying ethical even action only strict answer rules. So like Korean conquer acts and the Asian violate anything but permissible which they have to find a new change for content to perform freedom is the process of justification with arguments willing that we should violate ethical theory presupposes that we are unknown such place and we can free arguments thus logically incoherent to justify logically incoherent to justify arguments first willing that we can pursue from end. Now negate. Compulsory being underlines the foundation of liberty democracy 3 reasons 1 7. Nothing should be allowed for reasons for actually, political impact by not casting a voter turn the lines. Additional votes to those who got spots in the letter will be in one form will be a form might be sacrificed to the person against who political effects in future voters. Much as you not assume for the party moving forward in the center votes, a lot of opposing parties withholding as those entirely willing to assist in a second tiring against the majority. Nothing can influence one position. Mission language and personal counter excessive votes language actions was confusion from 7,325 to 48,979. An electoral avenue expression of especially powerful political and third abstention whether the democracy is legitimate reason to go to the text of very foundation of abstention can vote radically sources of speech democracy upon the decision the state is legitimate for the current situation. Punishes constitutional injustice when people are punished for the reason that political punishment and pursuit of law is equally determining how a political has to be whether they're voting somehow objective to be punished for the person in a lifestyle theory. Next off is NCC. Interpreters in the applicants can see the next philosophy NC contention. For infinite use the applicant 7 minutes to jump a conditional level when it makes it impossible to answer every scenario. And the next content alpha is the most large to level the playing field, but it means the one it can be 7 minutes on framing it. And then with the 5 second case and 1 hour and 2 hours, which is impossible to be back into the 6 minutes, 2 hours, 17, 2 hour clubs, please covered option and penalty. Allows more philosophical education comes first in the community, so you kind of understand where the line of these one of unique forms of philosophy. The implication is dropping our contention, but if they contest it becomes dropped the later because the bottom determines always. A scope the model with the cost of multiple violation for the interpretive purposes which determines to increase the belongs to be probably in like schools and operates but that years to determines through convenient interpreters judgment imposing on BS mean allows counting maximums for determining abuse. No guys on the show even they have awesome to me but they chose not to be so abuse self-inflicted abuse when the show is to often they can slowly die try to amplify this level of education. Next off counterpoint. Counterpoint text compulsory philosophers to issue and publish the statement that collective the statement that philosophical standards of reflecting disability freedom is terrible should never be. Next off. Countertext I endorse the entirety of the only absent the word stupidity and coherent can be sublime below from the African coherent process. 1 to melon 19 already blue. First use doctrine since fully exposed for its utter stupidity. Discourse shape realities operated is one of those profound articulated its other frame here. Although for discourse of everything and processes the determined limits what can be thought. Direction of discourses of criticism and system domination jurisdiction. Just so they have no right to use the word to describe people for themselves also purposes they come out of a person for clarification here's the one see. Next off. Countertext will discourse the entirety of the only minus the lack of a content for saying the word break here around 50 base 16. I got no rank to your serve the fees with special trauma so the option to proceed on a 60% from providing safety. It's kind of one to the person with traumatic experience to from examining apparently to everyone. It isn't much to lead as character success unfortunately it's no ignorant is happening to care so much from my criminal content where it says enterprise safety environments from swords and mortals can use the case. As an overview to use a one how to donate this is some people like me don't have the ability to feel pleasure. Sometimes the A things can get better. B logic can use this as the only alternative can allow groups to feel they want. B2 morally opponent H2 so this is useless morally opponents it doesn't establish more traditional which is morally opponents. It causes sometimes because people hurt themselves. B organs that one piece raging can be killed to have the organs donated to survive the people so the actions good but never okay just people off the streets and murder them. 3 calculations possible A aggregations only itself 1 mega and a half hour solutions and possible utility self-reviewing that maximize utility calculate for acting is morally on utility even that's the point. Usual unknown just because the pleasure and humans doesn't mean we should maximize the oxygen but 2 with the standards of maximizing oxygen 2 pleasures high deck but our evidence that says we control by socially imposed mental disorders and can't feel the true pleasure until accept them theory. After it comes last LOL 1 with a 30 minutes times 2p2 the opposite 72 times theory advantage times 2 that's crossed by the theory hedge 2 more just to be efficient so your problem theory hedge 1 area theory should be after the 2 months over comes substance over kind of theory since last we said in the theory so be there's what kind of we knew which means the 1 area theory says is intervention because something you know social and because A 1 area theory can taking use to reject be dropping our immune stands for outside of face usually even happen the theory based on seeing and discussing the theory skip the last card. The evidence is terminal, the impact will never go weaker now. And then see, the risk of nuclear war and impact terminal is the number of factors that ensure that 2 hours not becoming blows anytime soon. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so I didn't read Foucault 965, the second card, and the theory part. And then I read Math 19, and nothing after that.
Cool. Ready?
Yep.
This first card on the critique, the Crit Pesque, is entirely about the U.S. and it's about laws that exist in the status quo. So how does an India F change any of that?
Yeah, sure. So it's about the fact that you don't change that. So, for example, I think you link
Whoa.
to this.
Okay. Keep going.
Do you want me to explain?
Yeah.
Are you gonna
No.
Okay.
Keep going.
So you link harder into this link because you don't actually change anything in the United States. So, for example, you only change things in India. You could defend the entire resolution if you wanted to. You decided not to. So that probably proves link even further. But
Well,
even
if
it's
I
not
were
true,
to change
it's that-
something, okay, that's fine. I guess that makes sense.
It's also true that and you defend the Australia model, and the Australia model says that people with unsound mind cannot vote. And I can read that card in the 2NR if you want to contest it.
Yes, please do read that because I don't think that's true. But independently, just to
is-
clarify, under your belt evidence, the only AF that should be read is an AF as a non-T AF that changes the laws in the U.S. to be more inclusive to disabled people.
No.
You just said that my problem is I didn't defend that. So can you clarify what you meant by that?
Yeah, you should just defend a non-TF, but it doesn't have to change the laws. We would say pessimism is incoherent. It doesn't make sense with that.
Okay, fair enough. Can you explain what a post-human cyborgian analysis is?
Yeah, sure. So it just means that we recognize that things can never get better for disabled folk, and then we learn to survive in a world that is never-endingly ableist.
Never. Where's your ontology warrant? What card is that?
Both of them, Belt 15 and the Par 17 card.
Where in the Belt 15 card is their ontology?
Yeah, sure. So it doesn't say the word ontology. However, it does say that insane or flagged opposed for mental incompetence, we presume civil death of those they treated. So civil death, i.e. you're stuck in the insane asylum and you cannot get out, which means that things cannot get better. And
What's the warrant for that?
That
That just seems like a claim.
What do you mean? What's the warrant?
Did they use
You don't think people are stuck in
psychoanalysis? Did
No,
they just
no.
say we presume civil death and just leave it at that? What's the warrant?
No, the rest of the card is the warrant.
So just that voting
to
discriminates against disabled people. Okay.
No,
I guess
that's
fine.
not the warrant.
Sure.
Okay. Not the warrant.
I just kind of want to move on. You read 7 off.
Yeah.
Is it condo? Status of all the
Yeah.
Ks and counterplans. All are condo.
Everything. Yeah. All condo.
Is the K a floating pick?
Nope.
Okay. I guess what is the purpose of this counterplan about how contemporary philosophers ought to issue statement disability freedom, stuff like that? Does this solve any of the AF?
No.
What's the net benefit?
There's no net benefit.
Okay. We didn't even read the word stupidity, so I how are you word picking?
Doesn't matter.
I'm just curious.
You should have crossed it off. You shouldn't have read that card. You should have either crossed it off or not read that card in the first place. You did not do that. Someone who cut that card on your team, I don't know if it was you or not.
Why should I be responsible for actions that I literally had no idea?
You read the app. You read the app.
Okay,
fair enough. You could have checked it over. If you want to check your app for being ableist,
check every word over in the app.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I will take prep. Okay, I have 35 seconds left. I'll send it out. Okay, the order is case, the 1AR theory paradigm issues preempt and the 1AC bad shell, the neg framework choice shell, the word pick out of incoherence and stupidity, the content warnings pick, the disability freedom cont NC, and the ableism K at the bottom.
Give me just a second to open that doc.
Mhm.
Is app starting with the advantage and then the theory stuff, or is
Yeah.
it the other way around?
It's
Yeah,
advantage
okay,
on
cool.
theory.
Gotcha. Okay, let me set my timer. Good.
Alright. Preserving the vitality of Indian democracy is key to solving Indo-Pak War. CV is key. Boosts turnout, which checks bad foreign policy decisions while super targeting the democratic institutions that hold them accountable. Extinction outweighs because it causes infinite suffering and infinite value. The anhedonia dissent doesn't apply. The anhedonia dissent doesn't apply to certain people, but that doesn't mean we're excluding them, which was the entirety of cross-ex. The morally repugnant stuff also doesn't matter whatsoever because suicide would cause net worse harms on other people, which is the reason why it's bad. Organs dissent also doesn't matter whatsoever because it's a question because that would never actually occur in real life. We shouldn't be held accountable for these abstract philosophical scenarios. Calculations impossible. It doesn't apply. Aggregation is possible because we're able to compare via talking and self-refuting. Also doesn't apply, which will be the util justifications on the shell. The theory hedge stuff I'll answer individually. None of these should apply because we should always get punishment proportional to abuse. If I prove that an individual theory shell matters, then we should be able to get it. The NAth evidence doesn't actually say what you think it does. It says that it's low in the status quo, but it's going to get worse, which is all the internal link work. The one-air theory shell counterinterpret. You can claim one-air theory with paradigm issues. You can just win arguments against all of our 1AC preamps, clash, and beat back the preamps. They were each one line each, so it's key to creating more in-depth theory education because we get to start the debate one speech early. The NFC shall counterinterpret. We don't have to concede neg framing. They make confirming impossible, i.e. the role of the ballot is to vote neg, which would be enough offense just to win me the shell. But independently, they also make field education worse because it's better to get in-depth engagement than surface level reading just by the neg team, and then we were just like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. Stop complaining about neg time skew too. Like 4-minute one error is infinitely harder. You get 7 minutes to dumb on framework, which means it's definitely winnable for you. The stupidity incoherence word pick. I didn't read the word stupidity, so you should be able to perm that plank. We shouldn't be held responsible for things that maybe some of our ableist coaches are cutting, but we're definitely shouldn't be held accountable for being ableist. But incoherence is still a good measure for a lack of military communication between different actors. Also, actually, multiple conditional worlds are a voting issue. They should only get one. More worlds opens the door for the F double turning itself because answers to one feed the other flows. Reciprocity, the F designed to answer the square. We get a perm. One condo tells their flex and testing off and drop the debater for deterrence and drop the arg makes their counterplaying condo. Actually cross apply and extend the 1AC 1AR paradigm issues here. They really conceded them. Picks are a voting issue for deterrence. They move the 1AC and forces the already time crunch 1AR to restart. Picks artificially inflates the words of bad dissent, which explodes F prep and pushes the debate to the fringes, which kills topic education and fairness. Word K's self, but word picks are specifically bad because they're impossible to prep. Yes, jurisdiction is a language. Every word has different meanings in different contexts, which was the entirety of cross-text. The content warnings picked. Permutation, do both, and the F was already on my wiki, which means any violation is non-unique. Everyone can see it. I sent you the F before the round, which means you already had that sort of content warning, and content warnings turn discussions into marketplaces of trauma, which turns the pick. It's non-unique because you also use discussions of violence against disability, which means this applies equally to you. The disability content, you conceded weighability and intuitions away from the 1AC, which means some violations of the categorical imperative are worse than others, which they can't explain. Intuitions do matter, which was also conceded. No permissibility trigger. We can just stop calculating at a logical point. The NC fails because of the rarity objection. Parfait 11. Suppose I really steal some wallet from a woman dressed in white eating strawberries while reading the last page of Spinoza. I could rationally will it to be true that this is universal because it would most likely be unlikely that anyone else would act precisely in this way. Compulsory voting doesn't suppress liberty. Citizens have obligations to each other and the government. That's Surich 17, the author. Actually, they've conceded a card from the 1AC that says we're not illiberal and we don't justify any sort of liberty justifications because we only fulfill a duty to the state. Ableism K. The role of the ballot is to evaluate the hypothetical like consequences of applying class controls internally to every one of their framework arguments, only weighing the case allows us to determine the practical impacts of politics and preserves predictability and app leverage that fosters engagement. Rigorous contestation, third and fourth line testing are key to generate self-reflexivity that creates ethical subjects. Perm, do both. CB boosts democracy and solves domination of the majority. It's a prereq to breaking down ableism. 3, no link. Under the Australian model, anyone with a valid reason not to vote won't get fined. Only 1% of non-voters are ever penalized. Their first speak of link evidence is about the school and about the US. This is just bad evidence that doesn't apply, and if they force every debate to be non-T, it explodes limits, which makes prep impossible for the negative. There's no trade-off between voting and other activities. 5 on 15 education for the political landscape of the country is never time wasted for anything about any no hope of defeating the intelligent informed populace far than the apathetic populace. Mark the card at apathetic populace, and structural shifts in India prove ableism is not ontological. Radhakrish Krishnan, 14 India being safe means facing severe discrimination. A possible solution you bill with introduce has millions of people will begin receiving a wide array of areas. Bill would ensure all disabled children proper education. While the bill is far from approaching the overall mind intention in the right direction, the bill provides a good starting point. The ancient had laid to rest. More work should be done. It will take a harmful bill to undo the damage inflicted on the tables in Indian society. Hold the 2 and R to the 1 and C. They read 2 cards. They shouldn't be able to explode it.
All right, I got 4 minutes starting now. What did you not read in the doc?
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. Specifically just on the contents, I guess.
The 1 point, and I guess the 3 point, but I just made an analytic on the 3 point.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Sounds good. So condo, word picks, anything else that any other independent reasons to reject the team?
I don't think so.
Just those 2. Sounds good.
Mhm.
I will hold you to that. Okay. All right. So the order is going to be pull my doc. Okay, here we go. Cool. It's going to be condo. I'm not sure what that's flowed. I have so many pieces of paper over here. I think it's flowed on the word pick, right?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So condo, then picks bad, then the disability contingency, and then the NC, and then sorry, yeah, my bad. So condo, word picks, disability contingency, the case page starting on like the Adonia, those kind of just had things. Where's that? Yeah. Then the NCC, negative contention choice, if there's time, depends. Okay. Okay. Okay, everyone good? I'm actually gonna switch the order. Though on the theory hedge on actually never mind. We'll just keep it the same. I'll make it that'll make it way too confusing. Okay. Everyone ready?
Yes.
Okay. Diana, you good? Okay, sweet. All right, cool. Conditionality is good. One, it's the most logical. The rule of the negatives prove the opposite value. The opposite prove the optimal. Every counterplan is opposite opportunity cost of the plan. Any limit on that is arbitrary. It's also proves you should just get the status quo is better than the counterplan. 2 key and neg flex. They said the terms of it into the plan better. There's some multiple options to show the negative laws and auto lose at the 2AC. 3 foster advocates. Force the app to defend every component of the plan allows rigor. Assessing allows better information processing. By enable discussion on living issues. 4, it's the most real. Policymakers stack a bill from different angles. They don't limit some for the one criticism. And they change in 5% all the time. 5, mathematical Barnard-Tarski paradox. Thank you, Daniel Liu. A, axiom of choice. Regardless of any fairness or education argument, they win conditionality as a constituent feature of debate. And F has a picture of topical plan within an infinite resolution, so it logically follows that we can have infinite condo advocates. B, inductive diminishing marginal returns. Obviously, the use differential between 6 condo advocates and 5 condo is more than 1 versus 2, so we get infinite condos since it's not that much more abusive. The theory might say that 2 condo advocates is worse than 1 million condo advocates because of the differential, but that's paradoxical because there's more condo advocates. 6, using inevitable speed, carding category, topic amounts to make debate hard. They haven't proven my structures good debate anymore. The word picks. This pick is good. One is the most logical. They prove cross-play the condo awareness. It's key to testing. There's no ground loss. The counterplan is less than the plan, so they can pick out. They can weigh whatever we picked out, just like they empirically did. And excuse and code. They chose the plan. They could have been. They should be prepared to defend every component of the way. So you don't punish us for off lease. And now they say moves all are off, but you're the athlete to pick the framework in your plan. It's your fault. You defend almost the entire. You defend. And that term picks is better for ground because you only need to win one small portion of it. Since if the net benefit is truly super small, then you should be able to outweigh by turning it. Disability contingency. Heavily undercover means as GG on disability contingency. I'm gonna go line by line. First, vote neg to stop authoritarian politicians from forcing individuals to comply with oppressive norms. If we win the framework debate, then vote negs on any risk of offenses is a huge. Vote neg on any risk of offenses on your float is a huge. If it's intrinsically evil to coerce people to perform certain actions, unless their action violates another freedom, this is a burden because it proves that they don't coerce a single person into voting. Our impact turns the idea of contention defense. Now, compulsory voting violates freedom. That's once in 07. I'm gonna go for the one reason that this entire card was straight concede, which means that I don't have to go for one. Spillover not voting gives people the freedom to influence other people's vote with since there's less voters in the pool, so there'll be voters in the pool. We give them more weight. Additionally, a voter should be allowed to abstain, prevent their party from not moving from right to the left and staying hard left, or staying hard moving further from the center and staying hard right or hard left. And not voting can shift a party's political ideology. Finally, not voting enables the freedom to not cause other people to vote. As an empirical example, Mr. Langer and the 40K increase in voters' abstentions. Okay, so they can see a contentional offense. All I have to do is win the affirmative debate, and then I'll answer the 16th not waste thing. They'll probably classify, even though they didn't do that in the last speech. They say we have one respects question on the affirmative debate. This literally is just a consequential notion. It just said that like one thing is worse than the other. But if we win the thesis of disability continuum and the fact that they conceded our very first card that we read, then they're going to lose this debate. Two is and they also say the most logical. We have impact, and they say it's the most logical, and like we can just like decide calculability based on logic, but that we have impact on the notion because logic is not accessible to everyone, which means that it definitely doesn't apply to that, especially not just doesn't apply to a disability continuism. And see which logical is is not you can classify that this also applies to intuitions argument. You should not vote on intuitions if you again just begs the question goes to the affirmative. If I win the card that was right in the first part of the NC, then you should vote negative because they straight conceded it. Now the perfect evidence. First on the perfect evidence that we do not defend universalizability, rather we just defend respecting disability freedom. Read the standard text. It does not defend universalizability. The tailoring objection, the Parfit objection, just says that like if one specific person does one specific thing, it could be morally permissible because it only affects that one specific person. But that does not empirically answer any part of any other parts of it. That does not empirically does not answer because it relies on universalizability. But we don't defend that. We just defend treating people as a means to an end as bad. And this is just not disability in general, which means it doesn't apply. Which means that they have functionally no offense against their NC. So we'll beat them on that. All right, cool. All right. Then they say on cool case. You cannot expect to pick up a theory about when you concede a theory hedge. 8 is that the tuner has to overcover substance and overcover theory since the collapse remains from the collapse persuasive advantage of the 3-minute 2-yard number and be it responsible accountable new, which is the one theory that says intervention C against 7 minutes and 9 only 6. That carries an irreal structural C, which always all infinite abuse claims, even though they didn't go for any of those. They say it's always proportional to whatever, but that's ridiculous because we have made a totalizing claim about why one area theory is always bad and it should always be rejected. They straight up conceded, do not allow any true or weighing on that. Do not allow because it doesn't make sense. Now, on the Allegheny side, you said it's not excluding, but you conceded that the Allegheny just said hijacks the internal link to Eversol to doing the app because the only alternative or only disability consciousness can actually allow groups to feel what they want. For example, the disability consciousness says that we should respect freedom, and if we respect freedom, then we allow people to choose their actions that they think are a good idea, and anything else doesn't allow us to do this. So they concede the B point on the Allegheny side, which kind of takes out utility hijacks it, which kind of proves that it's not going to happen. Then on the more repugnant stuff, I'm going to go for the B point that your organs said. They say that it's an abstract scenario and you should hold me accountable for this, but that is what your philosophy defends. Just because it may not feel comfortable for you to defend something like that does not mean that you should not be held accountable for that, which means that B point, this is actually a true argument, which means that either you're going to double one, either you don't actually defend utilitarianism and you're more disability continuum style, and if you're more disability continuum, you agree with affirmative and you consider offense, which means you vote neg, but or B point, they do defend utilitarianism, and they link super hard in this organ system because that is what the philosophical abstract model of disability, that is what it justifies in the first place. So that's fine. Okay, cool. Sorry, back to the disability continuum. Let's see. Real fast. They concede that they're gonna go for extinction outweighs argument, but 8 point that we don't care about consequences. They're completely irrelevant on our entity, and also they concede that disability they euthanize disabled infants because they only care about killing the lives or killing one to save the many. So that is bad.
35 seconds. Case, then the NC. Where's my timer? There. Cool. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Cool. Frame the debate like this. We have a 100% chance that under the world of the affirmative, we were able to solve back for extinction by preventing Indo-Pak war, which means that under the world of the affirmative, we prevent infinite value from not existing, which means all I have to do is win that there is at least a 99.9% chance that the NC does not have, that there is at least a 0.1% chance that the NC doesn't have as big of an impact as the case, because every single freedom violation also has infinite value, which means that it's a question of 100% infinite value because they conceded the case versus a 99.9% chance of infinite value, because I'm going to put some defense on the NC. Now, the case debate debate proper. I'll extend the Indo-Pac advantage. Low turnout in the status quo causes bad foreign policy decisions, which causes nuclear war, climate change. The climate will go down. Temperatures will plunge below freezing. Food production will go down. Everyone will suffer. It will turn all of your sort of disability freedom standards because disabled people won't be able to pursue the same free ends except independently. I'll just engage on the framework debate on this case page. The anhedonia dissad. You made a bunch of impact implications, i.e., you were like, if we win the anhedonia dissad, we would be able to hijack the internal link. First of all, this claim just literally doesn't make sense. I struggle to find a warrant anywhere inside of it, but it doesn't matter if your impact has some implications. If you conceded a no link, you've conceded that we don't exclude people with anhedonia because we read several other util justifications. This is simply a reason why anhedonia might mean that Moen doesn't apply to every single person, but that doesn't mean we're excluding them from all of our calculations, which is proven by the fact that we read other util justifications. The organ donor's argument, you fundamentally misunderstood the 1AR response to this. We should not be held accountable for the most extreme margins of our philosophies, only the things that would actually happen in the real world, because what use is a philosophy if it doesn't apply to the real world whatsoever? This is like saying under a Kantian NC, we would be just, we shouldn't lie to a Nazi if they asked if we were housing a Jew in our house during the Holocaust, just because it's some sort of marginal abstract sense of our philosophy, because it would be the best way to not violate freedom. I guess the NC then. They conceded the bottom argument I made on the NC, which was an analytic, which was the extension of our Chauhan evidence, which is that compulsory voting isn't illiberal. It protects the foundations of democracy, which is a straight turn under their own NC, which means even if they win their own framework, we just win under it, because the only way to protect our democratic duty, i.e. our freedom under the world of the NC, is to do things like compulsory voting. It's the only way to prevent domination, because it ensures the lack of domination of the majority, and it still allows us to do things like cast blank ballots, which gets rid of all of their not voting good offense. They said it's evil to coerce people. They've also conceded the cross-application from the K, which is that we don't necessarily have to vote. Under the Australian model, only like 1% of people who don't vote are actually penalized, which means you can just not vote and then provide a valid reason, and then you're completely fine, which means we barely link under the framework. Now I'm going for the weighability offense. All their responses were just like, we can weigh the thesis, and we conceded the thesis. No, it's obviously an implicit response. Your thesis is wrong if I win that weighability is true. Things like promises to breaking a promise to take someone to the hospital is obviously worse than breaking a promise to take someone to lunch, but the only thing that can explain that is through the consequences, which means that consequences do matter. The way you justify that is through your intuitions, which isn't ableist. They just said intuitions isn't accessible without providing any warrant whatsoever. It is intuitively true, and we can both agree on that. You should have to provide at least some sort of evidence for why certain things are inaccessible or ableist.
Good debate.
Good debate.
Okay.